So I wanted to take a minute on this rest day to give a little bit of a glimpse into Lyme. And mostly I fear that doing the walk across Ontario along the TransCanada Trail gives a false impression of what it's like living with Lyme. So I remember when I was in the worst part of recovery, and it was really nice to hear the hopeful stories of people that were recovering well and doing well. But at the same time, it was really hard to hear because you weren't there and you weren't even sure if you would ever get there. I'm about, I figure, somewhere between 75 and 85% recovery in the regular part of my life, but I'm somewhere between 20 and 30% recovery in the athletic abilities that I used to have. So although I've come really far, I've definitely lost a lot, and I'm still hoping for more improvement. But as you know, I was bitten on a 300-kilometer trail in 7 days, and that's when I was doing 40 to 50 kilometers on really rough terrain. So it just shows that what I'm trying to do now is at a much lesser level than it was before, and I'm having to be very cautious that it doesn't set me back like it can in Lyme. I also want people to know how walking, the ability to be able to walk, is huge for me and is huge for any person struggling with Lyme at some point in their struggle, because just before diagnosis, I literally couldn't walk to my neighbors 200 meters away without having to stop, rest, and catch my breath. And that was only 3 years after running a half Ironman. So it does show the deterioration, and yet I couldn't convince any specialist or doctor that there was something wrong with me. So the very worst story I have with regards to walking I wanted to share today, to let others know who are struggling with recovery, and to let those who are watching my walk know that a very short time ago I really wasn't sure this would ever happen. And I was about 7 or 8 months into recovery and trying very hard to do just a little bit of exercise every day. But quite honestly, walking for more than 10 to 20 minutes is often very difficult, even when you're starting to do much better. I was going through a bit of a setback, so although I had made progress, another one of those setbacks, that's one of those words that haunts me to this day because I still worry about it. But sometimes you could make some great progress and then be set back, and it would take months, 2 to 3 months, to come back to where you maybe were at one point. There seemed to be no rhyme or reason for it. It's sort of part of recovery, and just became something you had to deal with. But I had vowed to go for a walk almost every day I could, and although some days it is absolutely impossible, literally getting out of bed to go and get something to eat when you're starving sometimes is possible. So when people say it's fatigue, it's not a fatigue. The fatigue you feel on your worst day of the very worst flu or a horrible virus that has you completely comatose on your couch, it's worse than that, and it's almost every day. So it's a horrible, crippling fatigue. And I know that this one day I'd gone all day vowing that I would just get up and walk for a few minutes, and it was getting later on in the evening, and I swore that I would make myself do it. And the old days where you didn't feel like exercising, but once you got yourself there, the feeling came. Well, that doesn't happen. So I decided I would walk around my house. It's a 2-story, it's only 1,500 square feet, so it's not very far around the house. But that way I was close to a few doors, so whenever my body would fail me, I could probably make it back inside. I walked around the house once, and I could instantly start to feel the energy drain from me, and I'm sure the anxiety of knowing what's about to happen doesn't help either. But I was finally around 1.5 times, and I remember at that point where I just had no energy to even lift another foot, to take another step. It was horribly demotivating. I remember thinking, this is impossible. How can you not convince yourself to make it 3 times around your house, 2 times around your house? And all I could do, it was almost like I was paralyzed. I had nothing left, and I just fell to my knees, and it was rather cold that night, and I just lay there and cried. And I remember thinking in that point, I am never going to get better. I am never going to be who I was. It's a horrible feeling, but all I can tell people is that there's more days that are like that than not. And I'm very grateful to be where I am right now, but I also know that there's some people that aren't where I am. There's some people doing better than I am, and there's some people that are suffering miserably because they didn't have the opportunities I had to get the same treatment or get the same help. So I'm grateful for everything I was given, but I feel that it's very necessary for people to know that it doesn't matter who you are, what type of mentality you have, and how strong you once were, Lyme will bring you to your knees. And for some people, that's probably for the rest of their life. So please don't assume that because I'm doing this walk that it's something easy to do with Lyme. It's very hard, but I've been lucky enough to get to this point that I can consider trying to do it. And Lyme is a horrible, horrible thing to live with, even when you're finally doing better. Thanks for listening. I hope it gives some perspective, and I want all those out there trying to get better and in recovery to know that you can do it. You can get at least a little bit better, and there is hope out there. We're going to keep fighting for better help and better treatment so you can get a better life.